Well, hello and welcome again to Marketing. Dr. Kevin Argus here. I thought I'd give you an update, given this is our first week commencing. So although semester starts next week on the 26th, we actually commence a little earlier this Saturday, first of our mini intensives. So we've got all day Saturday in here, building 13, level 2, room 29. It's catered for in terms of morning and afternoon tea breaks, and you can, plenty of places here in Melbourne to get your lunch locally. So I just thought I'd put out a reminder there because for some of you, you'll notice that there are Wednesday nights that are also part of the timetable. I did reply to a question just now on Canvas from one of our members who did inquire as to when the teaching commences and what the schedule looks like. So I've detailed each of the Saturdays. So we start this Saturday, which is the 24th of February, and that covers topics 1 to 3. Then at week 4, we resume on the Wednesday evenings, 5:30 to 8:30, and that's weeks 4, 5, 6, and 7. So that covers either side of Easter. Then we come back for another mini intensive. So that's a Saturday, again, same room, building 13 to 29, 9 to 5, and that covers topics 8, 9, and 10. And then we finish off with 2 Wednesday nights, which takes us to the end of semester. In among all that, when you have a look at the assessment criteria, and just today we have finalised the Part B and posted that, and you'll find links to that now on Canvas. Basically, what we have is 70% of our assessment is around an industry project. That's quite exciting. It's with KPMG, and it's looking at something that is going to be rolled out globally throughout KPMG. So it's great to be in at the early stages of that and helping them to investigate, I guess, how best to provide value to their intended target. So under the learning activities section or module for topic 1, you'll notice that there is the video interview that I've had with the project lead, a senior partner, Andy Salterbeck from KPMG. So what I need you to do as a minimum is to go through that video, take some notes, unpack your understanding of what the project is all about. Reason for that is this Saturday, one of the project team from the Melbourne office, Fraser Hughes, will be in class at 11 a.m. And between 11 and 12, he will again unpack the marketing challenge that we face around the evolution, the development of this product, which is taking the traditional face-to-face managed services model and taking that on a continuum towards a digital platform where they standardize some services, keeping the human touch, the key expertise that the client's looking for, and target a market that's very much under-tapped by the top end, well, the major consultancy firms like KPMG, and that's those with revenue around the 100 to 500 million mark, which is less than the top end of town. So it's a really interesting project. So you need to familiarise yourself with their understanding of it and some of the questions that we're going to be pursuing. Also, what we have is a Harvard business case study, again in the learning activities that I want you to have a read of. It's a case titled The Sure Thing That Flopped. And what that's designed is to, and you'll find the case is quite self-explanatory, is to consider a a new idea within an existing business about how to launch something in the retail space based on assumptions that are rather untested, and it fails. And in looking at that case study, what we see is the relevance of the marketing planning process. Because what we'll find, and what you'll find when you look at the topic notes for this week under the learning materials, the lecture and the podcast that goes with the lecture, you'll find that really marketing is predicated on having sound insight from a consumer-centered perspective, whether that is a business to consumer or business to B market. So there are two things to have a look at: our live industry partner and the Harvard Business Review case study. You have other materials there, as I say, in terms of topic notes each week. There'll be lecture slides and a podcast to go with that. The lecture slides and podcasts, I've redone the lecture slides, haven't placed all of them up yet, so just be a little bit patient. They will go up. The content's not going to change dramatically. It's just going to be, we constantly each year update and refine focus. And for us, we're dealing in a climate of rapid change, so we constantly update materials. And the podcast series will be updated to be in sync with that. And also, there was an issue last year with the quality of the recording of the podcast, so there'll be a clearer quality recording. So just in the interim, for these first three topics, you've got what we had from last semester. So just on that, with Canvas, as you're probably aware, there's been a migration throughout RMIT, RMIT-wide, and every course has been moved to Canvas. So it's been a mass move from the previous learning platform, which is called Blackboard, to Canvas. And so a lot of migration, a lot of material that's being placed in places where it isn't necessarily meant to be, and we're working through getting that into the right order. And also some material that's not being linked in. So I noticed that the National Gallery of Victoria case study is not showing now. So as I mentioned in the announcement, this week and into early next week, we'll get everything as it should be. But that's not going to affect you greatly moving into this weekend. This weekend is really all about getting started, coming to grips with what are the fundamentals of marketing. Marketing is all about looking at the, what it is that we have as a key issue or problem that we wish to solve from a marketing perspective, which is ultimately an informed research perspective, looking at the broader external environment, in other words, all those factors beyond our organisation that influence market behaviour, and taking a look at the organisation internally, its skills, capabilities, resources, and the like. And that's the front end of what we do in the marketing planning process. So we're making a start with that. So you know who I am. This weekend you'll also meet a colleague who's assisting me throughout this course. He will be present all day on Saturday and at various points throughout semester. His name is Ari Zanaden. He's currently completing a PhD from university in the US. He has an MBA and importantly has a lot of experience as a head of product brand with some fast-moving consumer goods. He's worked in agency firms and is a brand expert, and his research is around socially responsible and cause-based branding, which is a key trend as we look at some of the trends that are occurring in the social sphere, the economic sphere, the political sphere, legal sphere, etc., and how they influence choices we make about how we go to market with products and services. So, just wanted to alert you as to how to prepare for this Saturday, to let you know that this Saturday is our first touch point and we cover the first three topics. We do have a mini intensive, so we've got those two Saturdays, this Saturday and the 21st of April. All the rest from week 4 And then week 4 to 7 are Wednesday nights. Then we've got the 21st of April, and then we've got the final 2 weeks where we complete with the Wednesday nights. So the project has I guess, 2 major assessments around the industry project. So the second assessment is where you take a consumer-centric approach, and we need to investigate what are the needs of this consumer market. So what are the needs of medium-sized organisations with that revenue of 100 million to 500 million in terms of managed services? How do they outsource? In what way? What are the best ways to communicate to them that this service is becoming available? So it'll be an investigation on a number of to address a number of questions in terms of really what is the gap in their needs. They do tend to outsource such services. Why would they approach a brand like KPMG? Digital platforms are becoming prevalent in other industries, like in the telecommunications industry, as Andy pointed out in the video. Managed services, it's a complete shift. It's not just a matter of meeting the client's needs, it's also an internal issue in terms of for managed services for your typical large consulting firm. It's been very people-driven. So there's issues with culture in terms of how we go about innovating and developing and getting collaboration in the development of these new product service offerings. So all sorts of exciting things to look at from that assessment 2, which is like a research project. So typically a research project, you don't go out there and reinvent the wheel. You look at what's known. So there's a secondary research component, which is really looking at literature that exists. Therefore, you'll be looking at peer-reviewed literature, so not just what's out there in the domain of business reports and what you can find via Google. Of course, you'll see maybe some reference via Google to some peer-reviewed research, but generally you need your RMIT student email and login to have access to the databases where that's found. So what you'll do there is basically look at what is known, and from that synthesize what is known, analyze it and say, okay, from reviewing the literature about this issue, here are some of the key themes. And this is what's some of the areas of interest that we will pursue further in terms of our industry engagement to see whether that resonates with the sort of case studies that we are before on behalf of KPMG. The other is industry engagement. Now, being an executive MBA, within the groups that you work in on this project, there'll be quite a network of connections, a network of people directly through organisations or indirectly, having access to people who have made transitions towards more of a platform-based solution, or even just have gone through significant change in terms of the way their products and services have been offered. So it may not be identical in terms of platform, but it might be similar in terms of the seismic shift of the cultural change and how technology has driven that change to transform the product or service offering. What I'll be doing with Andy is, and this will evolve as it typically does when you work as a consultant on a project. So at this stage, you'll see in the video, I propose maybe we look at 3 or 4 case studies, and that on behalf of the class, I collaborate with you and conduct those interviews, and we all share the data, and then you add your own engagement to that. So we'll see how that emerges. That's what looks like moving forward. But in some way, shape or form, secondary and primary investigation. Week 6, you pitch the findings of that investigation, where you're at that point, and you'll pitch that to our industry partner. So you've got 5 topics. The 6th topic is actually on ethics, and that's fine, and the information will be considered in the podcast and in the topic materials. But in class that evening, we'll be pitching. So that's a presentation pitch of what you found in assessment 2, and you'll be submitting a report. The report will be done individually. So that means that everyone needs to get involved in that investigative process. And I think that's important. As anyone who's undertaking marketing, you know, it's one thing to have data. A lot of the questions in business today, raw data can answer so much, but when we're dealing with people, anything to do with culture, anything to do with what is a motivation as to why somebody would choose to engage or not engage, often requires a qualitative component, and that's about having a conversation, and a deep conversation. And then you have the first assessment, which is really then taking all of that learning, incorporating it in your marketing plan. So we go through a process. We look externally. So externally is looking at the broad environment, what's happening in the industry, what's happening in the competitive environment, what's happening with this target consumer group, which you're learning about in assessment 2, what's happening at a very broad level in terms of political, legal, economic, what's happening in terms of environment, social, you know, we call it pestle analysis. So you look quite broadly, and then from that you narrow down which area you want to focus on. So you'll notice when we look at the instructions of how to develop a marketing plan, we incorporate design thinking, because in effect design thinking is really getting people who are not marketing research people, getting them on board with the investigative process. It's also about not just getting them on board to do an investigation, but changing the mindset so that they come to it with an open mind. So in marketing, we love design thinking because it really marries so well. The challenge in the past with marketing as a role is it's been seen as a bit of a silo, that marketing people and people with research capability are out there in marketing. And of course, you know, there's other roles in a marketing in terms of account management and all sorts of things, but essentially the marketing department has done the research and analysed it. Design thinking brings greater diversity to the research table, which is fabulous, and takes through the process, which is really good in terms of not only what does that look like, what do we find, and what does that mean in terms of the objectives we pursue, but what that might look in terms of strategy and how we might develop a prototype. So that's where working in groups is going to be fabulous in terms of you're developing that marketing plan. So you will develop a marketing plan that looks at getting you to a clear definition of the problem, setting some objectives. Then once you've done that, developing some strategy. So it literally is double diamond as per the design thinking approach, because then you look quite broadly at strategic alternatives, and that's what we do in a marketing plan. So we can overlay that with design thinking as a tool to achieve that evaluation of strategic alternatives, and then we'll refine that down to those things that are sort of, you know, feasible and viable in terms of which we ultimately recommend. So that'll be your marketing plan. That's worth 30% as a group, and then you will pitch that for another 10% as a group to the industry partner at week 12. And that's when we provide value to the industry partner. So when I've gone to KPMG and said, hey, I'd love to work with you on a project, you know, you've got some areas of interest that we've been able to discuss. This sounds really interesting. Will you work with us? Unless there's a value proposition for the industry partner, why would they commit the time and resources and potentially some research dollars? So, so what we need to do is make sure that this becomes a win-win. So the style of approach that Ari and I will apply in working with you is to collaborate with you on this as a consultancy, RMIT marketing consulting group from diverse backgrounds. I imagine few of you are marketing in terms of your careers. Some probably will be, but most won't be. And we'll be collaborating as consultants. So it's in all of our best interests that we produce high quality work. Okay, so I look forward to meeting you on Saturday, and we can talk more about it. You will meet Fraser Hughes from KPMG between 11 and 12. And we'll spend the day, one of the great things, one of the reasons we've transformed this semester as our first mini intensive is feedback from executive MBA students is that having a bit of intensive mode helps on a number of fronts. One, in terms of helping to bond those groups, but secondly, to be able to workshop in a focused situation where you're all together and getting some guidance, and particularly when we move to the second one on the 21st of April, and you're really looking at now structuring some solutions. This is where the expertise of Ari and myself will be important in terms of guiding you in a scenario where you can apply some of the design thinking tools at looking at what you've done with your marketing analysis models and looking at what are the possibilities. Because none of us know what the solution is going to be. And the key thing is to start thinking as you learn more about what questions to ask. Asking the right questions is more important than jumping to solutions. So I just invite you to come to marketing with an open mind about none of us know what the right answer is. We've all sat in meetings where people come up with their own anecdotes of this happened for me and this worked well. You know, are you the target market? And if not, that's just an opinion, maybe interesting to some, but probably not useful at the end of the day. So we need to have a process to work through. And as I say, that's where using marketing models and tools, overlaying with a design thinking approach to then taking that analysis and then doing something so that the ideas can be dealt with via a process that attends to is designed to minimize bias is a good thing. Anyway, look forward to seeing you this Saturday, 9 a.m. Maybe aim for an 8:30 start, sort of arrival, so that you can do a bit of meet and greet, and then we kick off at 9 a.m. So that is 13 to 29. See you then. Cheers.